been a doozy of a week in international geopolitics, and here we are up in northwestern Alberta, just trying to cut it a little corner and take a look at what's going on here in Canadian politics and culture at large. But tonight we have a very special guest over from Rumble. We have Handy from Handy News, who does a political cultural commentary on largely American politics. So it's exciting to kind of reach across the divide here and bring up our friend to the south, Mr. Handy. Sir, welcome to Wagons West tonight, my friend.
Hey, how's it going, TJ? Welcome, everybody. Thanks for having me. You guys can find me at RightHandy13 on X if you're looking for me, and Handy News on Rumble, so check us out.
Sweet. Just pull this banner down.
Yeah, I don't foray into Canadian until just a couple times a week when it's really big news, but it's fun.
Yeah, we have our own little circus up here, and so it's hard to pay attention to a lot of what's happening in the US. So I'm excited to pick your brain about a lot of that. And there's certainly some overlap. We share some similar challenges all across the board. So excited to talk about that. But before we get started into all the juicy stuff, I'd just love to hear about you, man. Like how, kind of maybe a little bit of a backstory. What's your origin story, so to speak? How did you get to do what you do today?
Well, believe it or not, I used to be a vote blue no matter who Democrat up until Obama got elected into the president's office, and I voted for him the first time. And before his first term was up, I knew something was sus, and I really started digging into all this stuff. So I've actually been following politics really deeply for probably about the last 12 years, and I just recently decided I'm going to start talking about it because it's getting too much, and the real news isn't out there for a lot of people to find. So I just wanted to be an extra source and give my opinion, because I've just been digging into this stuff for so long that it's like, wow, you can really see how it all works if you just pay attention. So but yeah, then I'd go live on Rumble twice a day, Monday through Friday, do a morning show and a night show. So usually at this time. But we're over here hanging out with you. We forgot to do the X setup, but I'm just sending everybody over this
Sweet.
way anyways. So
yeah, appreciate that. Handy and I were talking off camera just before we went live, and I'd said when the first episode of Wagons West got zapped from YouTube because of medical misinfo, as we so like to do every episode pretty much. And so I started the Rumble channel, and he was one of the ones that caught wind of that and came on as an early supporter and follower, and so just returned the favor and just really appreciated that. So just excited to have you on tonight. Also, before we went live, we were just chatting a little bit of where we came from, and you had mentioned that you lived up in Washington and have moved now. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit and what the change has been like for you?
Yeah, we were actually living in the heart of the Pacific Northwest, right between Seattle and the state capital, and a little town. A lot of people have heard of it because it gets bad a rep, but Tacoma. And we moved out there was about 8 years ago, and it was really beautiful. We fell in love with the area like almost immediately. So we had a little bit of a work we moved out there for Does Work. She's my co-host on the Night Shift News. She might pop in here in a minute, but we just fell in love with the area. We quickly found out, yes, there's bad areas and good areas like almost any major city. And it wasn't bad. There was a small homeless problem, and when I say homeless, I mean drug using junkies who choose to live on the streets because they think it's good. But there was a small problem. They mainly hid in green belts and areas you didn't see it everywhere. But since COVID happened, it really has exploded, and they just started completely enabling these people. And instead of arresting them, they decriminalized possession, which I know it's happened a lot up north there, and started giving out the stuff. They started trying to, they did everything they could to help these people except for get them off drugs. And it just became a complete and total mess. Crime rate shot up, and then they passed laws. The police couldn't chase people anymore unless they saw them commit a felony with their own eyes. So the cops just basically sat around and waited for 911 calls. And it got worse and worse. Last year, I was assaulted by one of the tent dwellers that had set up across the street for the second time, and they'd already been run off before. And they actually have a map they give out to the homeless people in Tacoma, what they call approved camping zones, and our neighborhood was not one, because we found a cheap apartment in the area with all the mansions. So we were kind of shielded for quite a few years, and then they just kept coming in, and the open garages, anything you left on your porch disappeared, and lots of break-ins. And like I said, I got assaulted last year, and then just about 2 months ago, we went to go out the front door in the morning, 6 a.m. There's a guy sitting out there half dressed, getting ready to get high on our porch, like face to face with she's panicking, shutting the door shut. I'm reaching and trying to, like, do I got to do something here? And she's like, no, there's a dude right there. So I yell through the door, I'm going to open this in a minute. If you're not gone, I'm doing something. He split. So, but yeah, it just got too rough. It's been crazy, and everybody's leaving. I tell you what, the people, Tacoma's still got an influx of population because people are fleeing Seattle. But Seattle has Joe Biden visiting today, so they bust all the homeless people. They rounded them all up and bust them down to their hotels they own in Tacoma, which they conveniently bought when COVID bankrupted them.
That seems to happen a lot, eh? When you had President Xi there of China visit, was it San Francisco? Yep. They cleaned it up, lickety split, and I guess the same thing happened today for Mr. Biden visiting Seattle.
Yep.
In November. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say the same thing happened when Biden went down to the border to actually go visit the border. The town that just the day before we'd seen videos of it just overrun was sparkling clean. So they do it anywhere these people go. No bad press.
I remember in November 2019, I went out to Eugene, Oregon to teach a seminar with a friend of mine, and flew into Portland, and then driving up to kind of the rural Eugene, and just got a very interesting sense of things out there. And that was like, I don't know when Chaz was a thing. I can't remember when that started, but this was November 2019. So this is like, I think lockdowns here started in March of 2020. So we're only a few months prior to that happening. So I just missed all the excitement, I guess.
Yeah. And I think Chaz happened right about summer into fall of 2020 there. That's a funny thing too, because we never really knew Antifa existed until, because we grew up, we're from Vegas originally. It's the desert. They don't play out here. It's too hot. But when we got up there, we didn't know they existed until we found out about the May Day riots that happened every year. And the cops just march them along while they go smash the windows of the banks and the Starbucks and whoever else they think are evil capitalist pigs that year, and get arrested and released with no charges. And watching that explode and looking at the tactics when the BLM riots started kicking off and going, wait, I've seen that guy on our local news. They literally flew from place to place to go do these riots and start them. So,
yeah, I was talking on the last episode, maybe a couple episodes ago, about kind of activist shared resources, right? You have, whether it was Black Lives Matter, whether it's PETA, whether it's Animal Liberation Front, or whether it's maybe the Palestinian ones now, whatever your kind of leftist group is going to be, you'll see the same faces regardless of what the cause is. And they just really kind of have this perennial protester circuit. And that's just what they do. So really interesting that they get flown around at whose dollar. And I mean, we can investigate that if you want, to disturb shit wherever they end up being.
It's all on my channel, actually. We've done deep dives into because the smaller news things do the digging and find all the funding just through Freedom of Information Acts, which we were lucky enough to have down here. And I've actually done several deep dives. These people, the main protest leaders, are paid between $2,200 and $7,000 a day.
Did you say $1,800 to $7,000 a day?
2,200 to 7,000.
2,200 to 7,000.
So these are the ones that fly around everywhere to start it up. The people on college campuses that run the organizations that, like the Students for Justice in Palestine, those people get between 12 and 2,200 a day for every protest day they do. So they're funded. They are paid activists. That's why it's all the same tactics, because they're out there just to cause trouble. And we've done deep dives since these college protests started going on into all of them, and you can watch the tactics and everything. And what it immediately boils down to, thank you, Doug, with the names coming in. What immediately boils down to is their underlying goal is really just to disrupt the U.S. government and try to usher in communism or representative democracy like you guys got up there. So it's funded and organized.
We have Dr. James Lindsay coming back in Alberta here in June. He's going to come to four stops to have in Bonnyville, Edmonton, Calgary, and Red Deer, I think it is. Just 4 cities here in Alberta. And he came last October, and he has this podcast called the New Discourses podcast. And one of them was a whole episode on George Soros and kind of his philosophy and strategies. And he was saying that his belief in an open society, he doesn't like the imbalance that the U.S. is the dominant power. And so he's not exactly pro-China either. But a lot of the funding to BLM activists or entities and other destabilizing forces is to try and reduce the influence of the U.S. in the world to make that even playing field as he would see it. So, that's why you'll have pallets of bricks show up. That's why when migrants come across the border, you'll have like cube vans show up with like phones and shirts and food and credit cards and stuff like that. And it's it's definitely not by chance. It's destruction, destabilization by design, and it's very worrisome.
Oh yeah, there's lots of sources too to follow this border stuff. It's actually funded by the U.S. government through organizations like Catholic Charities and other NGOs. They're getting grants from the government to do this work and working hand in hand with the cartels. So Ben Bergwam's a really good follow if you want to see what's going on with his law and border stuff. It's crazy how deep it actually goes. We have migrant centers in Panama and other countries where they can apply right there, and we fly them in so they don't have to make the trip with a 2-year work visa ready to go.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
There's what's it here in Canada? I've seen so many stuff go through my feed. I have a hard time keeping track, and I'm sure, I'm sure it's probably the same in parts of the U.S. that it is here, but the move to get permanent residents it was permanent residents now can join the military. I think that's what it is here, because our military in Canada, I don't know if you know about it. It's I can count like basically the number of soldiers on like one hand. We've diminished. Not only did they basically kick anybody out that refused to take their magical snake bite medicine time, but they've also basically transed the army here, and so we have tampons in the men's washroom. Oh yeah, hopefully not of the actual of the actual application of those tampons, but yeah, they've our military couldn't even. I don't know, man. Like we're in a very bad state that anybody could pretty much run over Canada if it was up to the military and the police force to defend us. And of course, our military and our military right now in Ontario actually are on this training exercise, going in groups to homes on wellness checks. So they're normalizing having the military in the street going around to houses to do wellness checks. And we can kind of use our imagination to see where that's going to go.
Yeah. That sounds like something that might work in nicely with the World Health Organization's pandemic treaty. They want all nations to sign on, which gives them total control. So, our military is not much better. When Joe Biden said dog-faced pony soldier, we didn't know he was literally referring to the officers that put on dog masks and do puppy play with each other that are in the higher ups. So, but yeah, they've done a lot of that to our military as well. We still have, we're short now because they discharged anyone who didn't get the vaccine. My son's actually in the Navy right now. One of them, he's deployed in the Asian Pacific area theater there, hoping Taiwan doesn't pop off.
Oh yeah,
a nuclear submarine. So, but yeah, they're recalling now a lot of these soldiers. They're getting letters in the mail that they're being called back to active duty, whether they were discharged from COVID or left on their own. They're doing a lot of recalls, which leads us down some scary rabbit holes, but we can see all that playing out overseas and know exactly what they're trying to do. So, but believe it or not, I was going to say Joe Biden talking about us having the world's best GDP right now is because of all the funding we've passed for Ukraine and Israel, because most of it doesn't go there. It just goes into our military manufacturing people, those businesses like Raytheon, Boeing, they all get huge influxes of cash to send weapons over there. So that's what our GDP is right now. It's just war.
Speaking of Boeing, I don't know if you saw that meme floating around of the Hitman from the Hitman video game, and it said Boeing Employee of the Year or something like that, 2024.
I've also seen the one where the Ben Affleck smoking, like,
Hitman,
like 10 more.
Yeah, man. Oh, Jeepers Creepers. The Mom Bomb put up here. What are your thoughts on Jordan Peterson, TJ? Yeah, a Canadian export. He's actually, so I'm from Ontario. I'm from Toronto, where originally, where he teaches at the University of Toronto, or at least taught at the University of Toronto before they bamboozled him. And I got to see him alongside Tucker Carlson here in Alberta. Nice. When was that? December, November? It was January, maybe. It was just a couple months ago. It wasn't that long ago. And he was in Red Deer with Rex Murphy. Rex Murphy was a well-known Canadian journalist, and he just passed away. I just saw that headline today. He died. So that's kind of a sad day for Canadian peoples. But at any rate, my thoughts on Jordan Peterson. I really like him. I don't agree with him on the Israel issue, but I do think he's done a lot of good. So, I think a lot of these pundits, Rex Murphy included, like the article that was written about him in the National Post, said that he was a real advocate for Israel in his last days, and it was an issue that was really important to him. And I think, especially on the right, maybe on the left too, but especially on the right, we have a habit of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, right? We have this figure. It could be Jordan Peterson. In Alberta, we have one, David Parker. He runs an organization called Take Back Alberta, which encourages grassroots involvement in politics at a local level to kind of make the change that they want to see happen. And a lot of people don't like him for various reasons, and so they'll just throw the baby out with the bathwater. He's terrible because of A, B, or C, and therefore I can't listen to anything he says. And I think that that's a mistake. Well, I think that, I think debate is kind of, in my opinion, maybe you'll disagree with me, I think debate and kind of reaching across the aisle is kind of a distraction now. I think we're kind of past the point of that slow change. I think that things are going to change really fast, and we need to take greater action. I'm not saying take up arms and storm the Capitol. I'm just saying that debate and trying to reach the unawake is maybe not a valid tactic anymore. There's a time for everything, and right now I don't think it's a time for that. What's your thought on that?
Well, here we are seeing a difference where we're seeing a lot more people are starting to pay attention, or starting to get involved. Like what we call them the normies, the non-awake. There are normies, and more of them are actively speaking up. I can't tell you how different it's been too. We saw it a lot up there because I'm obviously, you see, I dress flags and stuff and very patriotic all the time. Well, we lived in the heart of the liberal nest of the but even they were starting to come out and ask questions like, man, do you know what's going on? Why did everything get so expensive? And I was like, oh, let me tell you. But we're seeing a lot more people wake up. So I think that this year, especially with all the BS they're throwing against President Trump, we're going to see an election here that's probably too big to rig. So I think that the normies have seen it, and they've had enough. And it's kind of funny because you can trace the roots of all this rapid change that's starting to happen. Like you guys, they got all that stuff passed. You're a few years ahead of us, so I can see exactly the same path we're headed down into that. But it's these recent college graduates that were all in the political sciences. They're the ones that actually write all the bills and everything in these congressional offices, because a politician doesn't know how to write a law. Apparently, they're just the elected representative. They don't know much. So they rely on these college graduates from these Ivy League institutions to set the policy and tell them what they're supposed to think. And that's where we're getting a lot of the pushback. And we're luckily seeing even some of the politicians realizing that what their people in their office are telling them is not the same as what the general public's saying, at least the ones that are paying attention. So a lot of them, they're just off doing the parties and stuff, probably the same up there. We see Trudeau always out doing stuff.
Yeah, he certainly is. Yeah, recently our Liberal Party. So yeah, I guess you have that kind of two-party system. I'm sure you have independents and stuff as well. There's Dr. Shiva,
Yeah.
which is running as independent as well. I think he always entertains me when he talks. But we have a two-party system up here as well, which is kind of like a uniparty. And then there's some outside systems trying to make some ground. So you have your Liberal Party, which is like the Democrats. You have the Conservative Party, which is like your Republicans. Up here, they're basically red and blue of the same thing. You know, we have the NDP, which is a socialist party, and they prop up the Liberal Party right now in power. So basically, numbers-wise, they can kind of veto anything the opposition, which is the Conservative Party, tries to do. Although with all of, like you said, Trudeau's doing stuff all the time with all of his flubs and ethics violations and all the drama surrounding him, they're really assuring a kind of a conservative supermajority. But, you know, it feels to me like it's the puppet master up here with both parties. And we're just going to make this so bad that everybody goes over to this one without any resistance. And so now we're just going to have no resistance to whatever agenda we want to put forth through the blue version of our uniparty there. We do have the PPC, which is the People's Party of Canada, which I don't know if you're aware of them. The leader is Maxime Bernier, who was running for the leadership of the Conservative Party back before Pierre Poilievre was running, who's the current leader. And he didn't win. And when he realized that he couldn't really reform the party from within, he started his own party. And that would be like Canada's Populist Party.
Yeah.
And then next week, I actually have the leader of the Maverick Party on the show. And that is basically the federal party representing Western Canada, so BC, British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan. Okay. Kind of they represent basically the economic engine here of Canada. Yeah. So we have a couple of options, but you know, is it too little, too late? Is my question, which is I'm going to bring that up next week. And for you guys down in the States, do you think it's too little, too late for a turnaround, politically speaking?
I think this election is really on the cusp of just before too little, too late. I think there's still a chance that we can revert stuff. And one of the big things I push to everyone I can come into contact with is, I don't know if it's the same up there, but here, all of our politicians' numbers are published on a website. We can call them, we can email them to their office. And I push the people watching, make sure you're sending, when you see something you don't like, call your representative, send them an email, do something that they know that the people are paying attention. And hey, we saw you were supporting this. We don't like that, because that's how they used to get information, and people got lazy, and they just stopped teaching it in school for that one part. I still know that existed because I was at the end of the 90s before they started really dumbing down the education system. And, so I push that to everyone. Just go on, go check your even your state representatives, your local representatives. They have to all be available to the public, and they have to at least leave a voicemail. I say emails are great because you can put a read receipt on there and see if it actually anything happens. Usually 9 out of 10 times you get a response back. So I do tell people, don't go like off on a rant and start yelling and screaming. Compose something that makes them think. Something that says, hey, my whole family's against this, and we would like to know why you're supporting it. And it helps, because they have to know that the people who actually push those buttons and get them elected are paying attention. That's what they count on most of the time, is the uneducated voter.
We have in our province, we had I came out to the province in 2021, which was just before a leadership race was triggered. Because of again, credit to Take Back Alberta, as I mentioned before, and a lot of the grassroots got involved, went to the, the provincial party, the provincial Conservative Party, which is basically the equivalent of the state governor, would be the premier, we call them here.
Yeah.
And the premier at the time was Jason Kenney, and because of how we handled and how his government handled the corona restrictions and lockdowns and all that kind of stuff, a leadership race was triggered. He stepped down, and then the leadership race happened, and they installed the new premier, Danielle Smith. And she has also now recently kind of backtracked on a lot of stuff. She hasn't really been the shining knight that people were fooled to think she was. And so we have another AGM coming up in September. And, all those of us here that are kind of that are kind of, I'd say, more awake to things are really encouraging people to get involved, to get their tickets to that AGM, to go and to make some changes, because that the membership of the membership of the party, in our case here, does have the capacity to make the party pass resolutions, to get certain members on the board, and to make things happen. But it does take a lot of people to do that. So I'll talk a bit more about that at the end with kind of a call to action there. But yeah, I do encourage people to get involved, and they got to be noisy. Like, we think we got that person in, and then we just go back to sleep, because we don't want to be bothered, especially here. Like, I don't know whereabouts you are. You said Nevada, right? So
yeah,
here there's lots of farmland here. There's, the AGM is usually during like harvest time. So there's half the province there that's out busy. Yeah, they're busy. They're harvesting from sun up to sundown. And, these things are interestingly timed, right?
Yeah, exactly. On purpose.
Yeah. You were mentioning before, I just wanted to go back to this quickly, about the decriminalization of drugs on our West Coast as well in British Columbia. It's basically a failed experiment. You have your tent cities there. You have drugs and violence everywhere, not to mention the influx of migrants, both the US and Canada. I always wondered how Portugal did it, because Portugal decriminalized possession of drugs, and they kind of were able to put their efforts into treatment. And they were, as far as my understanding goes, I don't know how different the culture is, but they were able to kind of reduce the crime around drugs. And I don't know why they were such a success story, and when we do it over here, it's an absolute failure. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I can go to Portugal and the what is it, Amsterdam, where a lot of drugs are also legal, but they put a lot of money into treatment plans and stuff like that, and make awareness of it. I think they also, I know Amsterdam, you buy it in specialized stores. It's not like the street drugs that are both our nations just decided we're free to flow. Fentanyl is a chemical weapon, in my opinion. It's been deployed to hurt our population, because not only does it get them high, it alters their brain chemistry and shrinks their brain. So taking them more to their base instincts. So you see a lot of them hoarding and stuff like that. I think that's the difference, is when they decriminalized, they actually made it to where there was a system in place to where it couldn't be something unpure like that. I'm sure there was still street stuff, but I'm sure they cracked down, because like Portugal, a little bit more militaristic of a police force down there. And I'm sure that they cracked down on stuff, but probably just by keeping it affordable and pure. I know I've seen pictures from Canada where they have the white generic boxes that have come out recently. And I'm actually pro legalizing everything, but it needs to be managed. You can't allow people, because people as a whole are dumb, in my opinion. If they're not taking the time to educate themselves, they're just going with the trend, and those trends can catch them up. I was there in my life too. So I've been sober off of most drugs for about 20 years now. So, but I partied a lot in my youth. And the only thing I still do is I smoke a little bit of weed, because I have chronic knee pain, and it's the only thing that helps, because I will not take prescription painkillers and be a slave to the big pharmaceutical complexes. So
yeah, man,
get that stuff. So
you're reminding me, this is going to be a bit of a story, but it'll make sense in a second what the relation is.
Oh, no worries.
So I used to work at a gym there in near Toronto, just north of Toronto, in North York. And there was a personal trainer there so I used to do combat sports and stuff, and there was a personal trainer there. But he had worked as a personal trainer at another gym with me. It was an MMA gym, Extreme Couture in Etobicoke in Toronto. And he kept bugging me. He's like, he wanted to spar. Let's spar. And I just kept pushing it off. I never wanted to do it with him, because he was a bit of a clown. But he kept bugging me. And one time he corners me. He says, hey, let's spar. I said, okay, well, I got to do this class and do this workout, and maybe after. He's like, yeah. I'm like, but I don't have like my glide to bring any gear. He's like, oh, well, we'll just go light. I'm like, okay. You've been hounding me for months. I'm like, okay, sure, no problem. We'll go light. So I regretted it immediately, but I finished what I had to do. I go to spar this guy, just light. So he starts hitting me hard, and we're bare knuckles and stuff. And I'm like, hey, dude, you said light. He's like, yeah, light. So I peppered him a little bit, and he's like, "Hey man, what are you doing? We're supposed to go light." I was like, "All right." So he grabs onto me, gets me in a clinch, and he starts to try and take me down. And he's terrible at it, but I'm like, you know what? This will be good practice for me. He's a lot bigger than I am. I'll let him get on top of me, and I'll work from my back. So I just kind of go limp and let him take me down, and he fucking slammed me. And it was hardwood floor, like one of those yoga studios with the mirrors, kind of like the cardio room or whatever. And all it hurt, and that caused a whole bunch of issues. So I ended up going to the hospital there because of what I thought was a broken rib. I'm like, can I just go get an X-ray to see what damage is done? And I did have a cracked rib, but they also noticed I had some enlarged internal organs. They're like, yo, your liver's this and that. And I'm like, oh, so they wanted to do some more tests. And then I had to go for the old endoscopy and colonoscopy. By the way, they used a different scope for each one, just anyone's curious. And so they did the colonoscopy and whatnot. And they gave me a diagnosis there of inflammatory bowel disease. So the doctor there was trying to push me onto all sorts of what they call glucocorticosteroids, and to the tune of like $360 a month or something like that. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to do that. And anyways, I went back to the medical file and looked through the notes, and I noticed that one of the drugs they put me on when I was under was actually fentanyl, and that really surprised me that they did that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been used in surgery and stuff for a long time. I've actually been with someone who the fentanyl, they had to revive them on the surgical table. I was kind of hanging out for a friend, and they flatlined on the table because of the fentanyl. So they had to bring him back. Crazy stuff, but that's what it was originally designed for, was to be stronger than morphine. So it was cheaper too, because they don't have to grow it in Afghanistan and things like that. That's why we let the fields go.
Now, isn't besides like heart disease, isn't like medical malpractice or doctors basically the number 2 killer of people? Like, I mean, I'm gonna research that. Let me just check here.
It's up there. So I think like it's accidents are like number 1, or like home accidents. I thought here at least they were for a while. And then the other thing was medical malpractice, I think, is number 2. So I should have popped this chat out too.
Okay, just asking here, how many people die in America and Canada each year from medical malpractice? In the United States, it's estimated that medical errors cause around 251,000 fatalities annually, making it the 3rd leading cause after heart disease and cancer. And if we want to talk about that magical medicine time, heart disease and cancer can also be chalked up probably to medical malpractice. You can connect those dots. In Canada, the latest figures show that about 150 deaths occur each year due to misadventures or adverse events during medical care. However, other estimates suggest the number could be much higher, around 28,000 deaths a year. How do you go from 150 deaths to 28,000? But so between us, we have about 300,000 deaths a year due to medical malpractice. So that's a problem.
Well, and I just watched the other day, I showed it to my viewers. The Harvard medical students put out a rap video, and one of the lines is the girl is, "I just skimmed the reading, still passed the test." So these are the people going to be your doctors, medical doctors and stuff, are just doing enough to pass. So it's not like if you've ever seen the show House, it's not all House MD. I've been through, I've had a lot of medical problems here myself throughout the years. I have a chronic nerve pain that just inflames every nerve in like my whole body, like it's on fire, electrocuted and frozen at the same time. I've got diverticulitis. I've lived a hard life. I've beat myself up, and I've been at one point on 3 times the amount of SSRIs that they would give a normal depression patient for the nerve pain, because they didn't tell me what they were giving me. They just said, this will help. And it literally shut me down to where I was just like, no emotions, anything. My friends actually had talked me into weaning myself off these pills. And I ended up managing a lot of that nerve pain with diet and some natural medication, some natural herbal supplements from Asia. Sometimes it gets a bad rap. It's called kratom, though. It's just an herbal powder. Take a couple grams a day, and that pain's just not there. So,
awesome! I've heard about that stuff.
Yeah, and I think it gets a really bad rap because it actually helps people with addiction problems, because it can simulate the the feel of to the body of getting like that opiate hit without the super opiate high. I mean, there's different versions of it too. Like there's a red one that makes you all sleepy and tired, and a green one that gives you like a body euphoria where you're just like, woo, I feel good. And then I use a white powder because it's an energy with a little bit of pain relief, so and it kills those nerves fires really good. And but yeah, just I've quit lots of stuff where they've tried to put me on the system. Like managing a lot of my symptoms with diet and exercise helps so much more than being a walking zombie. So
yeah. Hey, let's talk about that, because I think that's great. And I just love to kind of get your experience on the transformation that you've had through exercise, through diet, and then also maybe a specific focus on, because you said you've done a lot of the drugs and stuff before. I've done some as well from my party days. Never the injectable ones, thankfully, on my end, but
no, never me, no needles.
Oh, good. Yeah. How did you go about kicking the addiction? Was it like from the get-go? Like, was it cold turkey? Did you have like replacement things to do that? Like how did you wean yourself off and get yourself to where you are now?
There was one time when I was in like high school, they was put into a rehab momentarily. My mom was just probably the worst mom to have kids that were impressionable like we were. But yeah, I actually had her put me into rehab because I was really bad on meth, and that actually turned out to be one of the worst experiences because what they did is you get into the rehab and they just immediately medicate you up with it's Thorazine. Everyone gets Thorazine or Valium or something similar. So you're just kind of sitting there floating through, and then they keep you there for like 4 weeks and you're cured.
Oh,
and,
man.
So that I actually called up my mom and said, you got to check me out of here early. This is not going to help me. They're just giving me more drugs and I like it. And so I kind of weaned myself off there the first time. And my drugs that I did, I was a lot of everything actually, where we grew up in a little area called Crack Alley. So it wasn't a very middle-class neighborhood. It was very much the projects. And so everything was available, and I sampled most of it. The only thing I've ever touched is heroin, and I got closer. The closest I got to that was pain pills from the doctor after I really jacked up my body, and those were probably the hardest thing to stop because it was worse. Like when I've done like speed before this stuff they start making with batteries and AA batteries and stuff came out. That was pretty much I'd get on it for a while, and I'd realize I'm getting too much, and I would just stop. And I would just like the people though are the hard things to cut out of your life, because if you keep those people around, you're right back into it. So
yeah.
And the last time I really did anything, we were living in like a little duplex in a small town. The neighbors who moved in next door were tweakers. We were just hanging out, drinking, having a barbecue because I thought they were normal people. And he's like, come in here. And I was like, I was like, I don't know, man. He's like, and then there's the peer pressure. So it's really, I have to use my willpower, but I don't believe in any of this, these treatment centers, these rehabs. You look how many times people fall from those. And they fall harder than any time I've ever slipped back into it, because I think they don't learn any self-control is the big issue. They just have to have it, and it just grabs a hold of them. But the fentanyl and stuff that's hitting the streets now, that is just so horrible. And I honestly believe that is a weapon deployed against our nations from China, because that's where all the chemicals are made. And if anyone tells you they're just making it in Mexico and shipping it across the border, those chemicals come right through the port in Tacoma all the time. And the cartels are set up everywhere. They're not just in Mexico. They're in both our countries respectively. So
I remember being in Toronto, and we're talking maybe 2017 or 2018. And I was just going to the local McDonald's to get my coffee through the drive-thru before I went off to work. And I drive by this guy. He's got like fresh ink all over his face, MS-13 right across the forehead. And I was like, I had no idea that they were this far up. Like, I knew we had your Bloods and your Crips and everything up here, and there's like local Toronto gangs, but I had no idea that they were that far reaching. And it was definitely an eye opener for sure.
Oh yeah, they are everywhere now. So that they are running a lot of the crime rings in these major cities where you see the retail theft rings. They're just managing it and usually just being like the middleman between the people stealing who they're paying in drugs and the people that are selling it they're selling it really cheap to. So you get these big giant. They just busted in California 3 or 4 warehouses full of products that were stolen from retail stores and being resold on Amazon, eBay, other sites like that, where anywhere they could set up their own store. So it's crazy.
The only place that El Salvadoran gang isn't anymore is actually El Salvador.
Probably they emptied all their prisons and sent them to the U.S. So did Venezuela before. They just got their thing going on. But I do want to say, the rehabs don't address the triggers most times. I have to, for me, my trigger is the people. So because if you find the wrong person, I'm really amicable because it's a similar lifestyle to what I grew up. So I've really pulled myself up from my bootstraps and worked my way out of that lifestyle in that neighborhood. And that whole thing and does been a big help keeping me away from that whole area, because it's really hard for me. I can slip like that if I just make friends with the wrong person and they're really friendly, and I've had people slip it to me at times in a drink or something. So, and once you're feeling it, but yeah. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the food that we're getting a lot of times, because a lot of my weight loss came from cutting out a lot of what we were eating. Starting to pay attention to what was on the labels and like the high fructose corn syrup replacing sugar and a lot of stuff. And I don't know how bad it is up there if Canada is as lax as the United States is, but like I used to drink a lot of Mountain Dew. And I drank it from before it became what it is now, where it was just a regular soda with sugar in it, and orange juice was number 1 ingredient. Now orange juice concentrates like the 6th or 7th ingredient. And the things that come before that are high fructose corn syrup and brominated vegetable oil. Vegetable oil. Yeah. So I here's this great. I didn't stop drinking soda altogether. I just started buying Mexican Coke, and it's
the cane sugar
legal. Yeah, it's the pure cane sugar soda. It's the original Coke recipe without the cocaine. But I can drink 1 or 2 little. It comes in the glass bottle. It tastes better. And it's not as, I didn't crave it as much too. I figured out a lot of that high fructose corn syrup stuff makes you want more. And also a lot of the crap they're putting into the food makes you feel full for a little while, then makes you hungry again. So you eat more. It's no wonder we're seeing 500-600 pound people advocating for fat pride and that they should have the same rights as everyone else. What don't you have? So that's a self-correcting problem, though. Apparently, all of the influencers that were pushing it are gone now. Yeah, none of them reached past 35, I think. So, but new ones have replaced them. But there also, if you haven't talked about it, the bug protein's already being added into foods already. Many protein bars contain insect-based protein. They're putting insect-based pasta, and they don't put it by the names. They've got some other names I was trying to find for it.
I think it's a cheddar powder or something. There's one.
Yeah, there's like 5 or 6 different ones. Dub will find it and pop it in the chat. I guarantee it. She's quick like that. So, but
it's amazing. It's amazing the changes you can implement with just the transformation you could have with some small changes implemented. I had a friend that he had lupus and he was in the hospital and he just blew up like a balloon. And when he got out of the hospital, he made one simple change. He took the dog, 2 changes. He took his dog for 2 walks a day instead of 1. And whenever he went to the store, he'd park at the far end of the parking lot and walk to the store and then go. He wouldn't, normally we're jockeying for the closest parking spot to the door possible, but he'd go as far as he could. And just adding 1 extra walk a day with his dog and doing that, he just melted the weight off like in no time. I had a friend of mine from Toronto. He's when I met him, he was well over 400 pounds. And he recently, when I say recently, probably within the last time I talked to him, within the last 6 months, I'd say, had adopted a carnivore diet. and he dropped 80 pounds in 6 inches. Sorry, he dropped 80 pounds in 6 weeks on the carnivore diet. Just doing that, it just kind of melted off of him. Now, you might sound kind of drastic, but when you're that big, you know, I'm sure his joints and his heart and everything are really appreciative. And it's not actually the external fat that's the problem. That's going to make life difficult for you. But it's the subcutaneous fat, the fat like on your organs. That's the killer right there. That fat.
And I'm going to say something. I'm going to show everyone the before picture, like I showed you. That was me about 8 years ago. I was probably pushing close. I hadn't weighed myself. The driver's license still said 215, but I was probably closer to like 340. But I've changed my diet, and it's not just that I started eating like super clean, healthy stuff. I fry foods in beef tallow, corn dogs, and French fries, and things like that. Because
man after my own heart.
I don't eat it every day. We try to eat healthier. We still eat pasta. We actually found some. There we go. She's got it all. We also found some like pastas from Italy that they carry at certain brands around here, and it's just natural pasta noodles the way Grandma used to make them. It's not the processed bleached crap, and it actually tastes so much better. Ooh, that's sad. Ukulele can no longer afford beef. We go to like the warehouse stores, and we actually we had to leave our deep freezer behind when we moved because there was no room in the truck, and it was just a little chest one. So we're going to get a deep freezer because we go to the big box stores, and like once every couple of months we buy a bunch of meat. We have a food sealer. We package it all up so we can get a lot for cheap. Because the grocery store prices are out of control out here. So
they're insane up here too. In northern Alberta, it gets really bad as well. We've lucked out through relationship actually. I was doing I have a documentary on both my Rumble and YouTube channel called The Albertan, and it was about an organic beef farmer. So I did that documentary, and in exchange for that, I got in this grass-fed organic beef, got half a cow from him there. We've gone through all the meat already, but that was last March we did that. But I have still some of the bones and organs and stuff in the freezer. I'll be going on. We did a whitetail hunt in November. That's wild country. That's on the YouTube channel as well. And I got to bring home that whitetail to feed the family. We're going for bear hunting in a couple of weeks. Hopefully I'll be able to bring back some bear. So doing hunting, building relationships with the farmers there. We have a Hutterite colony. Hutterites up here, it's, I guess, similar, I'd say, to Mennonites. Like it's just like a religious colony.
Yeah.
And we get 15 dozen eggs for $50. They have pies, jam, stuff there as well. We get this beautiful butter that comes straight from their Jersey cows. That's salted. It's amazing. And actually, I just met a couple earlier this week. I was doing some photos on their farm, and they have free range chickens. And so they do $4 a dozen for some free range eggs. So we're really lucky to have that. And we're able to, we have a friend that's granted us some of his land that we're able to go and do a garden. So we just planted a garden the other day. It's about 1,000 square feet. And where we have our corn and potatoes and onions and stuff that we grow from seed. So we are very lucky, in a position to be able to get a lot of our food that way. My wife makes her own bread. She makes her own pasta and stuff like that. So if we have any of her breads or anything like that, we know that it's just like flour and water and whatever, sugar, whatever she makes it with. So we really kind of try to minimize the times, the things we buy from the store and the processed stuff as well. Once in a while, like you said, like we're not complete psychos about it. Like we'll sit down at night, we'll have some popcorn or we'll have some nachos and watch a show or something like that, but for the most part, we eat pretty clean and we're pretty careful about where we get the stuff from.
Yep. And actually, you just reminded me, I now have 4 hours away access. I can buy either a whole cow or go half with my daughter's mom. We can buy a cow and get all the meat, at least half of the meat. So plus I got to remind her, she's got chickens. So whenever she's always complaining about too many eggs, like bring them down. Cause she's down here like every other weekend. So she can bring me eggs and we can actually just drive up there and go to the meat packing plant. I got to take it. That's worth a trip just there to get the box of freaking meats that they sell at the butchers up there. So
yeah.
Ooh, thank you for reminding me. I have all that stuff that's out close. So close enough because in Washington we had to hunt for it, and we weren't part of the like cliques when you get out into like the rural areas where the farmers and everything are. The meat packers kind of look at you funny, and you don't get the best cuts. Whereas now I know these people because I used to live there for many, many years. So it's not Betsy, it's steak. Duh.
Yeah. Don't kill Betsy. She's saying so. Asking if there's Amish. Yeah, so it's kind of like they're Hutterites, but the equivalent is Amish. They're pretty insular.
Yeah.
They're like a faith-based community. But yeah, it basically like Amish. But they do use technology. Like they don't shun electricity or whatnot. Like they have kind of one person or two people. Yeah. So they have like one or two people as their point of contact, which they'll use their cell phone and stuff like that. Actually, props to the Hutterites. When we had our lockdowns and we had a border blockade up here at the border of Montana, was it Montana? Yeah. So Sweetgrass, Montana meets Coots, Alberta, and that's where the blockade was.
Yeah.
You had the Hutterites were down there, and they were bringing in tons of food and just kind of keeping it going. Yeah. Yeah. So the Hutterite community was really, really helpful for that, and we have them all over the province, and we have one. It's about a 20-minute drive in, and that's where we go to get most of our kind of animal-based groceries at this point, and it keeps it a little bit more affordable for us. And you're getting stuff that's a little bit more healthy. The Hutterites, they use. I put up a video today. I was making some of those free-range eggs, but they do use caged birds for their eggs. Yeah. And so I guess that does maybe secrete a little bit of the stress hormones and whatnot into their eggs, but it's the ones you get from the grocery store are also going to be caged birds and maybe even maybe even worse, right? And depending on their conditions that they raise them in.
Yeah, I try to buy the free range whenever they're in the affordable price range.
Yeah.
So, but now she can bring them down. She's always got too many eggs, so she can just bring them right down. I'll take eggs. I eat eggs every day for the most part. So that's another thing. Proteins for breakfast. I don't eat breakfast till about 12:30 some days, and so it's my breakfast and lunch, and then we eat something for dinner. Usually about 8 o'clock because we're streaming through dinner time, and then if we get hungry later, we pop up some popcorn with the air popper. It's all good. So
what do you do? What do you mentioned some exercise as well? What do you do for exercise?
Well, I've just really because when COVID hit. I was locked down from construction, and then I slipped and fell out on the wet ground and destroyed my right knee. So I was actually unable to do any kind of work or hardly even walk. It took 18 months for them to restart elective surgeries out there. So literally, and I had to go to another county to get it done there because they started before. So the doctor said, okay, we know you've been waiting. I've been miserable this whole time. Literally 18 months of hardly being able to walk. My son graduated boot camp. I had to fly up there, got water on the knee from the flight because my knee was all messed up. I was miserable. They finally cleaned out all the cartilage and torn up stuff that was in my knee. And even though I need a knee replacement that they won't give me yet because the insurance says I'm too young. But I just started my exercise now. I've started doing push-ups. I'm really going to we just got into this new place. I've just kind of finally finished setting up. We have a full exercise facility that we have 24-hour access to and it's all brand new equipment. They're remodeling this place, but we have stairs in the house now. I couldn't have done this years ago. So that's just one thing is going up and down these stairs all day. It's like doing an hour of cardio in the gym. So, but I plan on doing a lot more exercises. My arms, I'm not used to my arms being this small. Like the sleeves are usually tight because I'm a contractor at heart. Handy is not just a name; it's an occupation. I fix everything. I'm kind of that jack of all trades guy that came in, and I could remodel your kitchen or I could replace your toilet depending on what you needed. So, and I used to working all day, every day. And so I was still fat doing that. That's how bad the food was that I was eating. And just changing a lot of that diet and starting to really focus more on exercising myself. Because it's one thing if I had to dig a trench and I'd do that like 20 minutes at a time because I wasn't that healthy. And I'd rent the backhoe because it was quicker and easier to dig a short trench, which was stupid. But but it took me too long. And just changing the diet was the biggest thing that helped me. And from there, once the weight started coming off just from changing the diet, I was able to start exercising more and walking more. Duh hated it because we'd go out walking around the block all the time. And I wanted to go whether it was raining or if it was sunny and 80 degrees or 20 degrees and starting to snow. I'd want to go walk and she'd hate it, but it kept us active. So Just
I
simple
remember.
things, simple changes.
I remember being. I mentioned that blockade, or shortly, and I also mentioned the provincial politics here. I'm a photographer by trade, and I worked on one of the leadership candidates' campaigns. And so we drove over the course of 5 months. We drove about 70,000 kilometers, which is like 35,000 miles across the province. And you're rushing from campaign stop to campaign stop to campaign stop. And so basically, you have hotel breakfasts and you have fast food along the way, more or less. So eating like crazy amounts of McDonald's, and and then of course I was away from my family, and so whenever we stopped somewhere, I was still drinking then, and so I'd pick up a bottle of whiskey and like a 6-pack or something, and I'd be confined to the hotel room, and I'd be drinking, and then we'd be driving, and then not drinking and driving, but separately incidents. Eating fast food, and I put on a whole. I hit on the campaign. I think I got my heaviest. I think I finally managed to hit 200 pounds, and it wasn't until last June that I started going to the gym and started really taking care of my diet, down to 190 now, but the composition, 180. The composition is a lot better now. But I found that for me, it was replacement behaviors, like to stop myself from craving to go get beer and whiskey and whatnot, because it's the habit for me of like drinking something every night.
Yeah.
So I forced myself to start drinking tea, and now every night, that's still my addiction. My habit is still to go have something to sip on, but now it's a tea. With cannabis, I was smoking a whole lot of cannabis, and that's also not good on the wallet. So I went and got. Not advocating like you use substances, but I got this stuff here, which is it's called Zonic, which is like the Canadian version of Zyn, which is a nicotine pouch. So it's just with these replacement behaviors have basically taken the place of those other things and got me off of those kind of unhealthier things. So that's really helpful.
And that's the funny thing, is that replacement behavior is actually how I quit drinking and ended up drinking so much Mountain Dew. Is when because I was drinking a lot at the end. Like I polish off a pint of moonshine if I was having a good night, but I replaced it with soda, so I never even really got the withdrawals from the alcohol like people who drink heavily do, because I'm guessing that's probably sugar withdrawals that really makes them get like that. A lot of that is the sugar, and I just started pumping my body full of sugar all the time. That was the hardest thing, is I had to actually wean myself off and start putting more water and, like I said, replacing the crap with stuff that was actually better for me. And I just like, for some reason, water's never really sat well with me. I always get heartburn when I drink water. So, but like having the Coke, and now I don't get heartburn, because it was probably that crap soda I was drinking, because now I can drink water every night before bed, and that's what I do. Is I just end the night with a cup of water to sip on. Does the same thing, but yeah, it's just it doesn't do it anymore. So I'm guessing it's probably my gut's probably better. Like I said, I was diagnosed with diverticulitis like 15 years ago, which is little holes in my intestines that like to flare up and cause pain and bathroom issues, similar to your symptoms.
Yeah.
I still have issues. It's not near as bad as it was when I was eating just like normal average diet that most Americans eat. But I've seen a lot more people wake up to that too. More people are looking at those labels when they're checking food. So, but that's what worries me about the pricing going up, is that they start going to those cheaper alternatives full of that garbage. So they can say,
dinner and hot dogs.
You don't want to eat the bugs. Yeah. What do you mean you don't want to eat the bugs? You've been eating them in your pasta and your protein bars and stuff like that. You've already been eating them. So
didn't John the Baptist sustain himself on a diet of locusts and honey? Probably the honey was the more nutritious. My wife and I are addicted to this now. It's literally just flavored bubble water. But we just found out the other day, natural flavors. There was some post I put up, and it was the pineal gland of a beaver, which is basically down by its sac. That's where they use to extract natural flavors. So I had always assumed when you read something that says natural flavor, if it's orange, you're like, oh, they take it from an orange. If it's raspberry, they take it from raspberry. No, it's natural flavor. They got it from the sac of a beaver. So that's
they use it for quite a few different things. Just like most of the juices that you find in let's say like 100% juice. If it's like apple juice, it's probably like 5% apple juice, and mostly pear juice. Because they use pear juice for everything, because it tastes like nothing, and whatever they mix it with, it takes that flavor. So it's just weird the way they've messed up our food supply. And I love that so many people are getting back into gardening and things like that. I want to start like a little hanging garden because we don't have a good area here yet, but that's going to change. But in the desert, it's harder to grow stuff, but I know I've done it before, and it's just crazy. But I do want to thank you for reminding me of all those options I've got now. My daughter's mom probably would have reminded me next time. I'm coming down. Do you want some eggs? Yes.
Yeah, get the eggs for sure. My wife got last year was our first year gardening, and we started from seed in the ground. And up here in Alberta, it's zone 3, which is like basically a super short growing season. And because like up to like May long weekend, basically you can get frost, and you can kill whatever you put in the ground. And root vegetables are a little bit more sturdy, and then by September, October, basically you have to have it out. And in the summer, luckily we get like really long sunshine hours. But my wife, we started earlier. She got a little tabletop greenhouse, just maybe about 4 feet tall and a little kind of rectangle, and I had a couple levels in it, and so we were able to start there. So even in the desert, I guess you could do like an indoor greenhouse even to give yourself a little bit of a advantage.
They make them. I just want to grow some like green onions and some of the cilantro and other things to add to the food. We do eat a lot of red meat just because it's just the way I grew up. So but I know how to make all kinds of foods. Doug calls me her professional chef sometimes. Just because my ex-wife couldn't cook, so I had to learn it all. But I also grew up, my mom cooked a lot and gardened a lot, so I did learn a lot of that stuff growing up too. Like we'd have salads right out of the garden. That was like the best time ever. So
yeah. Well, everyone else now moving forward in your life will benefit from that, I guess.
Yep. So we do have some fun though.
We were talking about exercising. I came across this today, and I thought I'd share this tonight. It's pretty funny. I'll just give it a little 29-second clip.
Oh. Must have been one of our mutuals. I was showing Dad this earlier. Yeah. Yeah, well, that one was funny. Anyway. I saw that one earlier. It was great.
Yeah.
I could never figure out.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I used to go hiking all the time when I lived up in northern Nevada. I'd be up and down the mountains all day long, and I was still just heavy, and it was just a stupid diet and everything. It's amazing just paying attention. So sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot to make a significant change, right? My wife right now is, she used to be a personal trainer. She does furniture refinishing now as her business.
Nice.
But she goes to the gym for herself and for her own fitness. And there's a lot of seniors over there that are watching her work out and watching her change and very curious to go ask her questions. And so now she's got a little posse of 5 or 6 of the ladies up there and their husbands that have kept asking her, oh, can you do a plan for us? Can you do a plan for us? And she's like, no, I'm not a trainer, but if you want to, I'm happy to, if I'm here, you see me, I'm happy to answer your questions. If you have any questions to help you out. But they kept pestering and pestering and pestering. So finally she put some programs together for them. And so there's a couple of ladies walking around the gym area with their little pieces of paper in the programs and are starting to feel stronger, are starting to feel healthier. And then it's just spreading like wildfire because their friends now are seeing that. And now everyone's coming to my wife and she's like, I got a job to do. I got a family to raise. I can't be okay, I guess.
Until the gym gets mad because she's taking all the business from the personal trainers, if they have any.
They had a conversation with her today about that. The general manager came up, excuse me, are you Katerina? She's like, yeah. And then he was just saying that, well, you can't be doing this here. And she's like, well, I'm not training anybody. My friends, they came to ask me for help. And it's no different than if I got a program online and I'm going to the gym with that program that I found on the internet and I'm doing it. They're doing it themselves. And also the trainers they have at the gym, are very young and kind of inexperienced. And the certifications they have are kind of shit. CanFit Pro is one, which is it's basically about as good as Canada's Food Guide, which is terrible. And anyways, long story short, they don't have the experience and the life experience that my wife does. And who are you to say that those people have to go to your trainer? They can kind of seek out who they want to train them. And she's not even training them. She just creates a workout program for them, spends 1 hour going through the exercises with them to make sure they can do it safely. That's it. And then the rest of the time they're on their own. So she's not really training them. But yeah, she's been causing a stir, I guess we'll say.
Yeah, that's the problem. They don't like it when you cut out the useless positions they have. You're talking about the food guide. The same thing here. The food. We grew up. We had the food pyramid, and it had this big giant base of nothing but bread that you're supposed to eat, like 8
breads and cereals.
Yeah. And then up at the very top was like your milks and the stuff they told us that was bad for us back in the 80s and 90s. It turns out really isn't. You just got to have it the right way. Like the eggs. Eat the eggs. It's not bad.
Yeah.
And then
all the things they told you were the worst for you. The yolk of the egg, salt, red meat. That's actually like the good stuff for you. Fat, that's what you need. Sugar's bad. Sugar's the bad one.
I use salted butter all the time. So that's my jam. On my popcorn, I put it on my friggin' breakfast. I make breakfast sandwiches with sausages in it, then poached eggs and real butter on the bread. It more energy, less like feeling like gut heavy and tired.
Yeah.
Even though I'm eating if you can buy all this stuff to do this for less than 2 breakfast sandwiches at McDonald's. And you can actually, if you have a Walmart near you, the Kroger brand sausage is the exact same patties they use at McDonald's. So if you really like those flavors, they're there, and they're not like processed garbage food. It's just frozen sausage patties. And but there's also other brands that are way better for you, a little thicker, more flavor. Just depends on what the budget is. But yeah, we can get for 2 breakfast sandwiches at McDonald's now, especially when we were in the Pacific Northwest. You're talking like the Big Macs were $20 US for a meal because they keep raising the minimum wage up there. So, and then the breakfast sandwiches that used to be $1 or like $6 each. So for $12, I get all the ingredients and I get better bread than you're giving at McDonald's.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. My dad used to say all growing up, and a lot wiser than I gave him credit for when I was younger. I'd come up with some like diet trend or when I was working out, I got to eat this and this. And he's like, just do what the farmers do. And I think that's wise. Just do what the farmers do. They know.
Yep. It's like I made him the other day, and I found a nice little pizza place around the corner, but they also make prime rib cheesesteaks. Oh, so good. But I threw that left. I couldn't finish the sandwich because it's like that long and it's prime rib and freaking part. I had provolone cheese, peppers, and onions, and just a really thin roll. And so I took that rest of that prime rib and threw it on top of the sausage and egg and just gave it a little more flavor. So just you eat those leftovers. That's what the farmers do. What they have for dinner becomes breakfast with some eggs. Yeah,
that's it.
Yep.
So good. I do a little hard pivot here. I wanted to go back to kind of the politics for a second.
Yeah.
We have our election in 2025. You're in an election year right now, 2024.
Yes.
It was actually, you said you've been paying attention to politics for a long time. I was not really paying attention to politics until probably maybe 2015, 2016 is when I kind of came online and started to wake up from an entirely blue pill. And it was actually the media hate on for Trump that I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense to me. And so I really like him. Of course, I guess I'd have 2 criticisms of him, which one would be how happy he is about the Operation Warp Speed. And also, kind of kissing the ring, so to speak, of a certain other nation that gives a lot of campaign money to a lot of U.S. politicians, AIPAC. So some people will think like Trump is a psyop. I don't know that he is or he isn't, but I think it's certainly better than the alternative. But what do you make of everything? What do you make of this election? What do you make of the two parties jockeying it out? Like, what do you think things sit? And I guess based on whatever result we get at your election, what do you think is going to happen moving forward?
Well, and where I look at it is with people's criticisms of Trump, and what they don't realize is this is a man who used to be universally loved in this country. The rappers would rap about being Trump. He was in movies like Home Alone. He actually reopened the ice skating rink in New York, got that reopened. He's like the biggest pop culture celebrity millionaire ever. And he's also a very shrewd businessman. So doubling down with the deals like APAC and stuff like that, that's a big thing that he knows he's got to play some of the game. I have really high hopes for this Trump presidency. It seems an inevitability at this time. And his first presidency, he ran in, he started to be the bull in the china shop. And because he didn't play ball, they shut him down with the media. They broke everything they could about his presidency, but he still got a lot done, as much as he could for somebody that was being attacked that hard. And you can see how hard they're still attacking him because he's coming back. At this point, I think I'm not going to say he's playing 4D chess or anything like some people do. He is playing a good game. In fact, he just came out, and as soon as Biden said something bad about Israel, he came out and said he supported Israel, but also reminded us that he told Netanyahu what a bad job he was doing. So, and that he's not afraid to be that larger than life person. And I think he really, in his heart, wants to help restore the country he grew up in, that he was able to live the American dream before it's gone for everyone. And I truly hope that he isn't just going to get in there and play ball, and that something actually gets done. But, and this is where I pay attention to lots of other stuff, I think the deep state might be more willing to play ball with Trump now than to try and push Biden and continue the program that Biden's people want, because it's not just, I figured this out. There's not just one big deep state. It's basically like you guys have your different political parties set up there, where we just have like Republicans and Democrats, but then we have all the lobbyists and, like I said, all the college educated kids. And that's a lot of those college kids. They're doing the bidding of the evil tyrant billionaires from overseas that we all like to make the butt of our jokes all the time, that are seriously doing damage to our country, because they'd like to see a one world communist government, in my opinion. But I think our actual deep state, the intelligence agencies and everything, are seeing exactly what's happening with the American people, realizing that these kids and stuff that have been coming out of college have been completely just undermining our system. And that's been the purpose all along. I really think our intelligence agencies got caught with their pants down and infiltrated too. They got infiltrated, and the people at the top only care about money. And I think we're going to see heads roll once Trump gets elected. It really depends on me. I mean, I've heard there's a lot of rumors right now that he's already picked his running mate, and it's Marco Rubio. Which, if it's Marco Rubio, that means the deep state may actually be working with Trump on doing something, because the people, you can't not see it online anymore. And I really think Hillary was supposed to be, we would have been right on pace with Canada with Hillary in office. So he did throw just a big wrench in the machine. And I'm sure they've realized too that more and more people are like, wait, no, you can't do this to us. We have rights. You guys even have your, what do they call it up there? I can't remember. But
our charter, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. However, it basically, the government showed us that it's not worth the paper it's written on, because they completely disregarded it whenever they put in any of they declared, back to that blockade of the border, and in conjunction with that, they had the Freedom Convoy, which was in Ottawa, but more the Coast border was actually where it was all kind of the impetus was centered around. They declared the Emergencies Act, which is formerly the War Measures Act, which is your country's at war, all power is centralized to the federal government, and they can do pretty much whatever they want in the name of national security.
Bank accounts and did all that garbage. And I was that's when I got interested in Canadian politics. That was my beacon there to start paying attention. So, but yeah,
there's the theater of our federal politics too, right? Because we have Trudeau, the big evil Trudeau, and his government, and all the, what's the word? The word is escaping me right now. All the scandals, he's been involved in. But you have the other side. The leader is Pierre Poilievre. He's the big conservative, the great white hope for right wingers in Canada. But it was actually the Conservative Party that brought the World Economic Forum to Canada under Stephen Harper, which was the previous Conservative Prime Minister. Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party are all about the trans agenda, Transgender Day of Visibility. They're all about mass migration. They're all about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So he's not trustworthy, and also it worries me because our premier used to work, because Pierre is actually from Alberta originally, and our premier used to work with him, and she has a relationship with him, and so we're very much we want kind of less Ottawa. Ottawa, of course, is where our federal government is. It's like your DC.
Yeah. We
want less of them in our lives. We want less centralized control. But if Pierre gets in, which it looks like he might just do that, the ability for our premier to stand up to him, I think, is going to be completely diminished because, they're basically friends.
Yeah.
And she's not going to be, I think, working in the best interest of Albertans. I think she's just going to play ball, and she's going to give a lot more than she should. So that's my worry. And so, my vote's going to be going elsewhere. Not that I think that voting is going to get us out of this. So that's kind of where we're at.
You guys are further down the rabbit hole than we are, and the difference being too that your populist candidate went and started his own party, pretty much had to start his own party, whereas Trump laid siege to the Republican Party and effectively turned all the people into Republicans. Because I was an independent until just recently. Now I will call myself a Republican because they overthrew the Wicked Witch of the Republican National Convention, who did nothing to help any of the candidates that were actually America first. So we've actually seen a lot of changes here where the Republican National Convention is now firmly America first. And I think we're going to see a lot of our rhinos drop. We've already seen quite a few of these deep state people who were probably very easily pulled off what their corruption was, already resign. So I think that they're slowly picking it apart, and they're going to help primary these guys out of action. And literally, Laura Trump is one of the co-chairs of the RNC now. So, and Barron Trump today just is going to be a Republican representative down in Florida.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Barron Trump just turned 18. He's into politics. He's already interested. So it seems like we have our populist movement got traction in probably the one place it could work, one of the two big parties. So our Republican Party was pretty much just everything the Democrats are doing, only slower. Mm-hmm. So everything the left's doing, just do it a lot slower. We don't care. And that's the difference. I see like a lot of what so-and-so called Republicans now are mostly former Democrats that we still have a lot of the same views. There's some hardcore conservative guys out there that are still left, but I'm kind of a live and let live kind of guy. I'm very anti-war. I started a whole thing that I'm going to start pushing out here called Patriots for Peace, that I want to start pushing as more like, see if a movement I can actually get to trend and get going online, because I'm very much that 90s liberal, had more conservative views than anybody in our government right now. And that's what a lot of us have turned into. We didn't move far left because we were out here living the American dreams. Just, we weren't paying attention enough. And we hear that a lot with my generation, specifically Gen X, your generation. Are you an older millennial at 43?
I'm 43, so I'm only 2 years behind you there.
Yeah, I think you may be right on the cusp of Gen X and millennial, but we weren't paying attention. We were asleep at the wheel. But a lot of us aren't anymore. Another reason, if you haven't noticed, they passed the bill to shut down TikTok.
Yeah,
and it's twofold reasons. For one, it's radicalizing the college students to be pro-Palestine because they're doing that stuff there, and pro-communist and things like that. But TikTok has very distinct different algorithms depending on what it senses on your phone or your computer during your first login, because you actually give it access to all the information. Like, so when Doug got onto TikTok years ago, she's been on it for years. We didn't get the crazy lefty videos. We started seeing the Patriot movement get born on TikTok. The MAGA movement go from just people like on Facebook, because we all got kicked off, to spreading, and these movements get bigger and bigger through TikTok. So that's another reason that they had to shut it down. It's actually helping Trump and hurting the Democrat Party. So even though Biden came out and said he would not sign any bill that contained a TikTok ban, as soon as that hit his desk, signed money to Ukraine, money to Israel, goodbye TikTok, because it's been hurting him. Another thing that they've had to do is the Democrats have actually slowed down a lot of their get out the vote campaigns. One of their biggest tools that they've used in the past to register young, dumb people to vote blue, they've had to call those orgs up and tell them, you have to stop. Too many people that you're registering are registering as Republican, because they want they're like, oh, rock the vote. Okay, yeah, I'd like to register as a Republican. And they're easing back on all those campaigns. So there's some big kind of like blood in the water in the political parties here. The Democrat Party looks like the socialists are actually part of the Democrat Party here. They call themselves the Progressive Democrat Caucus, or the Squad. AOC is a communist Democrat, and their whole movement is fractured the left so bad here that the big red wave that was promised in 2022 that didn't materialize, I think it was just still the tsunami pulling back. So that, Nate, we didn't get enough people because it wasn't a presidential election. That's the thing that sucks, is we have elections almost every year, and a lot of the population only shows up to vote once every 4 years. I used to be guilty of that too. Yeah. When it was presidential election time, it's all over the TV. Now I pay attention because there's local elections, and I don't want that person that's going to turn the school board into a raving LGBTQ sex party. We got to pay attention. And I'm actually probably getting myself more motivated to, and I hate to say this, I'm probably going to be foraying into local politics after I've met the resident requirements here. Once that next election comes around, I might see what I can do to get in one of these small positions that they just kind of flies under the radar, and then start working my way up so I can start affecting the change I'm preaching to everyone to do.
Yes, so. I'll answer this question in a second, Damambam, but you're right. Like, here we have municipal elections actually here in Alberta are happening in October 2025. Small town councils, like UN is coming here too. WF is coming here with their UNESCO Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities. Lots of places, small towns in Alberta have already signed on to that, which is bringing their towns in line with the SDGs. There's the LGBTQ agenda that is coming out in full force. That Benita Peterson I had on last week, and she led an initiative in her town of Westlock, which is about 5,000 people, where they banned. It was a bylaw on neutrality, meaning that no flags outside of federal, provincial, municipal flags, or could be flown, or crosswalks, stuff like that. So, I mean, going for a town councilor position, school trustee, these are small positions that are thankless jobs. They're not glorious. There's a lot more work. They don't pay well, if anything, but they're absolutely necessary. And yeah, I commend you for getting involved on the local level, because that's where you can actually affect the most change.
Yeah, and that's the thing. One of my viewers, Claw, he lives in a small rural Pennsylvania town, and everyone on the town council is a progressive Democrat, because they moved out there and they just ran pretty much unopposed and easily got the vote because people weren't paying attention. That's the biggest thing. These people think voting just for the president or that grand leader isn't going to solve all your problems. It could fix a lot of the federal problems you're dealing with, but the only way to fix those small town problems is to get involved and either support a candidate that you agree with their values, get out there, go knock on doors. And it's hard. I know a lot of people live more rurally and that have our values, and it gets a little harder to go door to door out there. So maybe you need to find that local meeting spot, because like out here, all the farm areas, they have a grange where all the farmers show up. Well, if you want to go help that political candidate, go walk into that Grange. You'll find them all there on like a Friday night or something, and maybe show up sometime during the week and see if you can set it up and get those people involved. We have to take this. This is where the left kills us down here. Yeah. It's very easy for them to get college students. They can pay $20 an hour to go door to door and register people to vote and tell them, well, you got to vote against Trump this election. 81 million votes. Where we are seeing a lot of evidence come out that there was a lot of the cheating we accused happening. Well, unfortunately, the law has no resolution for a president that was cheated out of an election 3 years ago. Even if we discovered it a year later, there was
damage already done.
Law. Biden was sworn in. He was the president. So even if it was cheated, even if they brought in extra ballots or scanned ballots twice, there's nothing we could do about it except for fix the problems. And that's we're seeing a lot more of those bills get passed in local places where they're fixing the problems, where you may have to have an ID, or you may have to have better verification. Whereas in the big blue cities and states like Washington, they've had universal mail-in voting for probably about a decade. They just go out to the homeless camps, and an NGO goes out with a clipboard, registers them all to vote under the address of the PO box the NGO holds, and then just gives them a little gift for allowing them to have that ballot. So they register them to vote. They put the address down, this their PO box or one of their locations to get sent to, and they just fill them out and send them in. They have these massive things, and when they control everything like California, Washington, Oregon, you can't stop them. Any investigation gets shut down from the top. So
yeah,
but that's their national divorce is very big on my things of what could happen in this near future. I think if Trump does get reelected, we may see the entire West Coast split off and secede from the United States, as well as like New York. They already war gamed all this in case he re-won 2020. They'd already had this whole thing planned out that they were going to leave the country and become something else in 2020 if Trump did win. But they managed to, as Joe Biden said, put together the biggest vote counting fraud organization in history. And now that we get a little bit of this coming out, we can see it happened, and we now are going to have the people at the locations paying attention. They're going to have actual legal observers there, lawyers and stuff on where they do this cheating, like Fulton County, Georgia, where it's coming out. And there's places in Michigan. They just fired the election people. A lot of them. 2 weeks ago was one. Now the head just got fired, where these were, because they're going to be under greater scrutiny this year. So we're putting the scrutiny into place because, like I said, he captured one of the major political parties just with the support of the people. So they are starting to put the stuff in play to where that same shenanigans, whether it be legal or illegal, is going to be harder for them to pull off in swing states. The blue strongholds, never going to happen. No matter how many people they hire to watch the vote counts, whatever, you can't stop their lax signature verification without it running all the way through the courts. And there are cases being ran up that the judges just shoot down before they can get up there. And once they get up to the state Supreme Court, they get shot down because it's all controlled. There's hardly any way to get in there, but you could still make a difference on a lot of those local positions. The state, we're never going to flip, but those local positions, go look at who's sitting on your school boards in Tacoma or Seattle. You would be surprised at what's actually making the decisions. Although if you've been paying attention to what they're teaching in schools now, you're probably not that surprised. So
yeah, we have that same, it's the exact same up here in that sense. In terms of like a divorce happening here in the Western Canada, which would be your prairie provinces, the ones that provide all the oil, all the resource, all the energy, all the food for not just Canada, but we actually, on that campaign trail I was on, we went to Hardisty, Alberta, which has a massive oil operation, and they actually ship a lot of oil down through the states. So like your whole kind of northern states are powered by oil that comes through Hardisty. And Alberta is treated kind of like Canada's redheaded stepchild. That we're very neglected. We lack representation at the table there. They've kind of pandered to the East and to Quebec in particular. They're guaranteed a certain amount of seats at the table in the House of Commons, which is our government out there. And so we don't really, we're basically unfairly treated for sure.
Yeah.
And so there's a definite growing separatist sentiment out here. And depending on how the future goes, we may see it kind of a bit of a balkanization, just like you talked about. To answer the unsung bard here, how much influence does the UK have in Canada now? Well, we're still, it feels like we're crown and name only. Like we still call our public lands crown land. We have, everything has to be, it gets royal assent. So the crown has to say okay to it. But usually that's done through who our governor general is. They're kind of like the crown's representative here in Canada. But our governor general was appointed by a prime minister. So she's kind of beholden to him. So it's all just it's theater. It's theater. And they kind of don't bother themselves with the day-to-day operations of Canada, but it's all done in the crown's name. So it's kind of like a rule in name only. And someone in the comments could probably correct me on this. They know it a little bit better than I do, but our governor general, which is besties with our prime minister. And how do you think he escapes all these? How do you think he escapes all these scandals? Well, because he's installed the people around him in Senate, in everywhere, and in the judiciary, like our courts, the court of the King's Bench, formerly the court of the Queen's Bench before she croaked, is basically entirely beholden to him. Are there some good judges out there? I don't know. I have yet to see one. Supreme Court even. It's just we're in, like you said, we're on that slippery slope into authoritarian rule, and it's pretty scary. I just saw something on your feed today. I'm Irish by heritage, and so I have no love for the crown at all. I actually went to in Alberta. They had the Platinum Jubilee. They have the little Queen Platinum Jubilee medals they gave out to citizens that did something exemplary. And each of our representatives, our MLAs, member of the Legislative Assembly, got a certain amount of them to give out to people in their constituency that were remarkable or did something remarkable for their community or sacrificed in some way. And when I went there, I wore my little, I took to take some pictures. I wore my little Michael Collins pin, right? He was an IRA member, and he was actually he was an IRA member, but he actually brokered a peace, to try and stop the fighting between the Brits and the Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. And then he was actually killed by his own side for the trouble. But I wanted to show this because you mentioned that you see some hope here in populist movements rising in not just here in Canada and the US, but check this out, guys. This is Ireland.
Yeah.
So this is in response to the mass migration crisis that's happening there, like everywhere else in the English-speaking world. And Sinn Féin are traitors. Sinn Féin, they were originally the IRA, and they've actually formed essentially an actual uniparty there. And so the government is in total cahoots in order to hold on to power. And so the people are now rising up, and you'll I don't think you want to I don't think you want to mess with the Irish. They're serious business.
I've been watching the videos of what's going on, and all these immigrants that are committing crimes and getting released. These people are seeing them on the streets, and they are street justicing. They are beating people. They are doing crazy things, and we're probably not that far from that here. We are at a critical boiling point in the U.S. where people are really going to start defending themselves. And I don't go anywhere without being armed, and haven't for a long time. And it's really sad because at one point, and I think it was during Trump's, I can't remember, I didn't have any guns at one point. It was during Trump, and before Obama really started to fuck anything up. And then I had them for a little while, and then for some reason I had to sell them. Long stories, but I didn't until things really started to get bad. When COVID really hit is when I went and bought another pistol, and now it's just growing from there. So
we've been almost disarmed here. It's illegal to buy, sell, trade handguns here at all. You can have your hunting AR-15s are illegal. Any kind of Armalite rifle, you can't have that now. You can bring your guns to the range, or you can bring your guns to hunt. But we can't. There's nowhere in Canada that you can just carry them around. We don't have a carry. We can't do open carry. Can't do concealed carry. And so, and in fact, in Canadian law, if you have anything, doesn't have to be a gun. If you have anything on you for the purpose of defense, it is now a weapon, and you can be charged for carrying that. So, if I have a pocket knife on me, where do we all carry? I just carry my little guy here. Where are we here?
Yeah,
just a tiny little CRKT tuna, and I used it to like cut potatoes for the garden and whatever you use a knife for. If I get into an altercation and I use that, if the purpose of carrying this is for self-defense, then it's a weapon. If the purpose is for something else and I happen to have it on me, then it's okay. So in Canada, we have to be kind of crafty. So whatever you're carrying on you, whether it be a pen, whether it be a screwdriver, whether it be a hammer, whether it be bear spray,
qualified like that. Yeah, bear spray.
You can't have pepper spray. If you have bear spray, you better have a reason to carry it. Now here in rural Alberta, we have bears. We have a reason. Cougars, bears, wolves, stuff like that. I had in Edmonton, I was walking my dog and she got attacked by another dog, and I had to bring my knife out and stab the dog to get it off of her. And so I have a past experience, traumatic experience there for a reason. My knife is basically a bad dog repellent. But if you're using it for self-defense, they're gonna try to nail you to the wall for that. So we're in a bad way up here in Canada.
That's another reason in Washington, even though it was an open carry state and you're allowed to carry almost everywhere, they were at the point where they were prosecuting the people defending themselves. Not as crazy as New York, but if I had to pull my weapon, like I said, I was assaulted just over a year ago by one of these people, and I had to use my better judgment because he didn't have a weapon. He was just coming after me with his hands that I could see, and if I'd pulled my weapon and drawn down and shot him, I would probably be sitting in prison right now. Even if he did have a weapon on him of any type, they would have still prosecuted me most likely for defending myself. Yeah. And Washington, like I said, it's an open carry state. Nevada, I think, is becoming a constitutional carry state, and that's going to be something very nice because then you can carry concealed without any permits. Clark County used to be very blue. They've had they used to require permits to buy a weapon. You used to have to show your permit to carry, even open carry card to buy ammunition down here. The state Supreme Court turned all that over. Nevada is becoming more of a red. I think it's becoming more red as we speak. But just in the last few years, we're now up to, I believe, 29 or 30 states that have gone constitutional carry. And there's still, in addition to the open carry states, where Washington still counts in that number. So even though we hear Biden all the time trying to take down the Constitution, we just had a local judge in New York prosecuting a case where a guy was 3D printing gun parts just for fun, for videos. They tried him, and she said, "Don't bring up the Second Amendment in my courtroom. It doesn't exist. This is New York." So and like we can see that they are allowed to go above and beyond enhancing crimes for Trump and things like that. It's a captured place. They have complete and total control. I'm sure if New York stops, Washington will press charges, and they're all pissed off about the Florida case because the Obama appointed judge down there just declassified everything and exposed how crooked the case was. It's now been postponed indefinitely.
And Human says they want law-abiding citizens afraid to defend themselves. I'm thinking of New York. I'm thinking of Daniel Penny.
Yeah.
You could even be in the right. You could defend yourself, that you were assaulted. You defend yourself. They're just going to throw the charges at you anyways and let the court sort you out.
Yeah.
And you could be proven right and exonerated $200,000-$300,000 later. Like either way, you lose. If you lose, you lose. If you win, you lose.
The bodega owner in New York who had a disagreement because the girl didn't have enough money on her card to buy all the chips she wanted to buy for food stamps. And so she went home, and the guy wouldn't give them to her. So she went home, brought her boyfriend to beat him up. He came behind the counter, started attacking him. He stabbed him a couple times in self-defense. They locked him up in Rikers without bail. Yet the migrants that are attacking women with belts, wrapping them around their neck and dragging them.
I'm going to show that.
Released. Yeah,
I brought that up. This is from New York, as well. Here it is here.
This is another reason it was getting this way in Washington. This is why we fled. They're that bold, and it's not just the migrants; it's the homeless people. They'll And then there's another element that drives around, and they're in their cars and they're looking for people of light skin color so they can get out and rob them. But yeah, this guy drags her with that belt around her neck.
And the caption here is that lassos, assaults, and rapes her. Is there any way out of this nightmare? Yeah. I mean, I'd encourage people to have some situational awareness, like, and keep your head on a swivel. Like, that's Bronx, New York. The mom bomb says that's a Bronx, New York. Yeah. So this is happening everywhere. This is happening up here in Canada too. Calgary, Edmonton. It's in Alberta. It's in Toronto. It's in New York. It's in Oregon. It's everywhere. And there's it almost feels like they want us to do something to retaliate. Like, you got to defend yourself, but it's like they want this boiling pot to boil over so they can bring in their martial law or whatever it is they have planned, you know?
Well, Washington just got a shock because they did one of their normal polls up there. And according to the poll they did, Trump's going to swing Washington away from the Democrats. According that, and that's going to really bite them in the butt when the polls keep saying Trump, 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 and the votes come in and all say Biden. People are going to get mad. And literally, our blue states are not truly blue. Washington, you have a whole little corridor along the I-5, and it starts at the Canadian border, which is a little more conservative out that way. And then you get to, the closer you get to Seattle, the more liberal it gets, and that continues through Tacoma and Olympia, and then it dead ends. And then it's just this little valley between the mountains, because anytime you get away from that corridor, the whole state's red. Mm-hmm. But Seattle pretty much controls the vote with how many residents and the density they have. That's why we're seeing more and more states. Part of Oregon wants to break off and become Greater Idaho. Most of California wants to break off from the little coastal region. So even if they do decide to do their seceding thing, I think parts of these states will end up going back to the U.S. because they're already trying to leave the blue portion of the state. So the United States are going to divide, and I think we're going to end up with two countries probably for about 20 to 50 years, and then the blue cities will collapse and fall apart, and then we'll bring them back in, and we'll be united once again. So I don't even know, though, because the people in the cities are starting to wake up. The Chicago residents are getting off the Democrat plantation. Man, yeah, big time. And we're seeing that in New York as well. I think they're going to be shocked because when it does pop off, they're expecting a white boogeyman to go and start shooting migrants. And it's probably going to be some tattooed up black guy with a 9 with a switch on it and just starting to spray and pray. And that's what they're going to get. It's not going to be us, the boogeyman they want. It's going to be the people they just marched for 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And they're mad. They're
really trying up here. They're really trying up here too to paint the white nationalist boogeyman. You know, you've seen that for years in the States and Canada. Yeah. They've really been pushing that narrative. And so that's what I'm saying. They're really trying to force that so they can bring in whatever agenda that they have for us.
And I got to say, one of the beautiful things about the MAGA movement, and you can tell it's waking more people up, and it's becoming even more scary to the deep state, because they just rebranded from white nationalist to Christian nationalist, because more and more people are rediscovering God. And I'm one of those people that this movement actually brought me closer. I grew up with a grandfather who was a pastor and a mom who was a pastor's daughter. If you get the stereotype, then you know what I'm talking about. She didn't have anything to do with the church and partied more than anything. But I learned a lot more from my grandfather than I did from my mom. And a lot of those lessons stuck with me. So I was kind of like the pastor's grandson who has a really strong conscience, and it helps. I mean, I'm right here. I try to on Sundays. I'm trying to make it more regular. I host a Sunday church show too, and I'll read passages. Oh, awesome. And I'll discuss how I think they apply to more real life. And what I didn't get to do last weekend, I had to work on my truck. So keeping it rolling is sometimes I got to sacrifice the other stuff. But this was actually given to me by one of my viewers. She shipped it to me because I was talking about needing a new one. And that's Miss Caroline sent it to me. That's a Caroline Godog or Color Fun on X. She does a lot of art on there. I got to find the box because she actually painted me a picture too of one of my handy news memes. So.
Awesome. That's actually a good time to talk about this because I made mention on X that I was going to read something, and I'm going to stay true to that in a minute. But I actually came out to Alberta when I was 20 for college, 19 years old, excuse me, for college, Bible college, actually. I was at Bible college here for years and took me to mission trips over in China, working with the underground church over there in the mainland up. And so it was a good time. And then I in 2005, I decided to move in with my girlfriend, and I didn't want to be a hypocrite. I'm like, well, I'm not supposed to be doing this. I can't call myself a Christian and do this. I have to choose. And I chose the relationship. And so that was when I physically parted from the church and then went into a militant atheism. And I've done a full swing back into agnosticism. But when I was down at that blockade, I really felt what I would only describe as the Spirit of God there among everybody in such unity for that purpose. And it was just incredibly, incredibly powerful. I actually visited the old Bible college I went to just for kind of walk down memory lane. And they were with the masks and the elbow shakes and the 6 feet apart. And it was just, it's like the Bible says that God gives you a spirit of power. That doesn't give you a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and sound mind. Like, where is that here? The Holy Spirit has left the building. He's not here. And it was, sorry, go ahead.
Here too. I said we got a lot of that here too. We the whole United Methodist Church is now a captured LGBTQ organization.
Yeah.
I show clips from their meetings where it's just nuts, wherever they get in trouble if the person doesn't say the pronouns and they still misgender someone who looks obviously female. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So I'm gonna read this. Where are we? Window. This one. Okay, so someone posted this on Twitter, which is talking about the Talmud. So there's Torah Jews and there's Talmud. So Torah is the first 5 books of the Bible, for anyone who doesn't know, and Talmud is basically rabbis over the years' interpretation of how to apply the Torah. So I had all these here, and I was accused of posting fake verses. So I figured I would give some context here and read the actual passages. So where it says here, even the best of Goyim should all be killed. That is out of context. It does say kill the best of the heathens in time of war. So when we're talking about wartime, I guess,
Yeah.
But also here, learn from this that the merciful one dispossesses the male Gentile of his offspring, as it is written with regard to Egyptians, whose flesh is a flesh, i.e., the offspring of the male Gentile is considered to be no more related to him, the offspring of donkeys and horses. That feels very nice. Children of Gentiles are not called man. We're basically animals. And with regard to their daughters, they should be classified. Oh, yeah, this was talking about the children of the Goyim, of Gentiles, being called filth. It's just saying that from the time of the cradle, they are decreed that they're considered to be menstruating from the time of the get-go. And there's a whole kind of unclean element to that. This is the one that really bothered me at the bottom. They're talking about, what constitutes homosexual activity versus sex, and the age when it becomes an actual sex, whether the active or passive participant. And this bottom one, it just made my wife really angry too when I was reading it to her. Therefore, just as one who engages in intercourse actively is not liable if he is less than 9 years old, as the intercourse of such a child does not have the halakhic status of intercourse, so too, if a child who is less than 9 years old engages in homosexual intercourse passively, so you're the receiver, the one who engages in intercourse with him is not liable. So that seems to be granting a permission there.
Yeah.
And there are some others here. But the point I'm trying to make is that there's a big push because of the Israel-Palestine conflict right now, a big push against, like you said, making Christian nationalism this kind of movement, and or trying to demonize it. We've had here in Canada, I don't know, hundreds of Christian churches burned to the ground over a fake scandal, which is residential schools, Indigenous residential schools.
I've read into all that. I know all that stuff. That's ridiculous.
But I got to tell you, the more that they demonize Christianity, the more it actually pulls me towards it. I don't know about you.
And I know, and that's me too. It's actually drawn me deeper to God, not to the church. I if I were to go to a church, I would probably have to start my own. My family actually has a church up in northern Nevada, which is a multi-denominational church. If you worship God, you're welcome. My uncle actually, when I was a lot younger, got me into reading some of these other books of these other religions. So I've read some of the what's the book, the Muslim book, but seen how they depict
Quran.
Quran, yes.
Yeah.
And I've read some of the Jew books, okay, the Torah. I've read some of that, and I've met a lot of these people because of the way they do things, and it seems to be that's also a larger movement. The big mega church thing that is swept in, it has really corrupted Christianity in a lot of cases, and I think also that we've seen down here, the United Methodist Church is just a clown show, nothing to do with religion. But I'm wondering if there aren't passages in books similar to that in the Vatican, because we've seen a lot of the scandals with priests and young boys and things of that nature. What do we not know about all of these religions? That have we really been living this lie the whole time and just been as far as I'm concerned, like the church itself takes the word and turns it into a means of control for the elites. And it's not just any church, it's all of them. Look at the radical Muslims use their book to declare war on anyone they don't agree with. Look at how Israel's treating Palestine and stuff like that. But Palestine did the same thing first. I know that they had peace over there. That they had the borders open. The guys were working back and forth together. And then the attack came on October 7th. And I just broke one today. The protesters on the college campuses, the actual organizers have been showing films of the October 7th attack on campus and laughing and joking about it. And it's actually driven away some of their protesters, but they're saying this is how that they get even with Israel. Instead of this is how they kicked it all off. They're showing these students this is what they do in return. So,
I think a lot of I was listening to a podcast the other day, the Spellbreakers podcast. But any of your followers, any of your audience should really go check it out. It's really, really good.
Okay,
it's the Spellbreakers podcast, and he was talking to a guy, Bruce McDonald, and Bruce said something that I agree with because I see it with Christians, and it's the same with Jews, and the same with I think maybe not any religion, but with Christianity and Judaism for sure. They'd be like cultural Christians or cultural Jews. Like my parents, I was baptized Anglican or baptized Catholic, so I'm a Christian or I'm a Catholic, but you don't really adhere to any of it. You're just kind of in name only, right? And a lot of Jews would be that way as well. Like they go to church on the high holy days. They're not like what I would call practicing. And so they're not to be confused with the elite. The same way that I wouldn't confuse you with Biden because you're American, and you wouldn't confuse me with Trudeau because I'm Canadian. There's that separation. But so there is a smaller element that is in the in the power positions, I guess we'll say, that will be doing whatever they're doing for their purposes. That might describe to this kind of stuff that we just read. But it's not the general population is not that, and so we're all kind of victim to the same group. And it's the war isn't this way. The war is this way. It's an us and them, but the us and them is the power,
the elite, the top.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly why. Like I was just commenting on something earlier, talking about Biden, and I said when he talks about the people being able to afford stuff, even though the prices got so high, he's not talking about us, the 99%. He's talking about the group of elites he actually represents, the people that helped fortify that election. That Time magazine wrote a whole big freaking almost book on how they made Biden win that election by getting people to vote against Trump. And it's crazy. We're fighting. No wonder he got elected. He's one of the good old boys that plays ball with China, with everything. There, it's like I said, there's so many different factions working against each other here. I'm amazed anything gets done at any given time. That's why if you've paid attention to American politics, I think probably the last 8 years when Trump came in and broke down that door, it actually fractured what should have been just a straight rush like Canada had. And now they get nothing done in our Congress at all, hardly. And then if they do get something passed down in the House, it goes up to the Senate and they just refuse to vote on it. So Nothing happens. And the only reason our government stays open is because they do these emergency funding bills every so often that everybody really has to agree to vote on. Otherwise, everything shuts down.
Mm-hmm.
We've not been a functioning government probably for, well, I'm not going to say 8 years. I'm going to say probably the last 6 years when 2018 election midterms came in and the Democrats flipped the House. I think that's when things got really bad.
Yeah.
And when nothing happened because the people that came up with Trump were enough of a monkey wrench to stop everything from going through the way they thought it would. And they just a motion today, because yesterday Marjorie Taylor Greene's vote to remove our Speaker of the House went to the floor. They voted to table it today. The minority Speaker of the House came out and he says, well, in exchange for us voting to keep Mike Johnson, we want you to silence all these MAGA people, to shut them down, because it's hurting their chance of getting anything accomplished in the little bit of time they have left. So
you would mention getting involved on a local level, and really in any level. Like, there may not be, quote, political solution, but like you just said, what you can do, and again, this is a concept from James Lindsay, again, from his podcast, being sand in the gears. You use the term being a monkey wrench. It's like, listen, they have their plans, and you might not be allowed in the inner circle of the elite. However, you can occupy whatever positions of power and influence you can have and exert that influence. And what you can do is you can buy time. You can slow down the machine so that you buy time. And so, sometimes an all-out victory isn't the victory. Sometimes just slowing them down and throwing sand in their gears or being that monkey wrench, that's enough of a victory, because it buys enough time. It creates a window of opportunity for something else to happen to then bolster your side or support your efforts. So, it's discouraging to like put all this time and effort to only be sand in the gears. But sometimes, that until you can get to a position of influence, like that's all we can hope for, maybe.
And I think it saved us. But I did put something over in the private chat here. It's a link to this Tina Forte. This is an example of the local people, because this is the woman who's now running against AOC and is actually polling better than AOC, where she's been running unopposed. And this is an honest to God Bronx, New Yorker running against AOC. And that's what we're going to see, is we're going to have to see more of these local people that know the language and everything to start talking to the people, because it's pretty easy. So you listen to her. She's instantly New Yorker. AOC, never. She's from Connecticut or wherever.
I'm Tina Forte. I'm a wife, mother, grandmother, and small business owner. I'm running for Congress to challenge the establishment and fight for you. We have all witnessed the liberal elites and their hypocrisy.
We're going to Met Gala.
They locked us in our homes, gave us curfews.
And Mayor de Blasio tweeting that what happened here was unacceptable, this will not be tolerated, and that he has instructed the NYPD to proceed immediately to summons or even arrest those who gather in large groups.
Well, they roam free and went on vacations.
Nancy Pelosi is under fire today after surveillance video shows her at a hair salon.
They ordered us to go without haircuts as they went to salons. They demanded we avoid crowds, wear masks while they partied in crowds maskless.
Squad member Jamal Bowman and New York City Mayor Eric Adams both caught maskless after telling everybody to follow the rules and doubling down on mask mandates for schools.
They even forced our children to wear masks in school all day.
Stacey Abrams causing a huge uproar over this photo in a room full of young masked children.
While they posed and grinned right next to them because the rules don't apply to them.
What we're doing to kids is unnecessary and horrible.
They mandated vaccines, telling us to trust the science, but ignored and lied about science of natural immunity.
It violates bodily autonomy when we allow corporations or governments to tell us what is best for our health. That is a scary place to be.
They scolded us not to celebrate Christmas or Thanksgiving with our families, or while they made trips to see their own families. They closed small businesses, but allowed major corporations to stay open. They told us who was essential and who was not. They ruined our economy, crushed the American dream for so many, and took our freedoms.
Yes, it involves tough restrictions.
But they didn't care because the rules never applied to them. I've been a voice in New York for those who could not speak out. I've taken on de Blasio, Cuomo, and Hochul. Now I'm taking on AOC, right where I was born and raised, in the Bronx. I'll never be silenced. I'll call out these hypocritical politicians, and I'll never stop fighting for freedom. Join me in this fight at Tina40forcongress.com.
Let's go. Let's go.
And in a lot of the cities now, what we're seeing left, because a lot of the people that have like moved there for better, greener pastures like us have now left. So now we're seeing those diehard locals who love that area more than anything and absolutely hate what has become standing up. And that's what we're going to have to see, is people getting in and getting involved. She's actually, they were shocked she won the primary and is going head to head with AOC and is now polling better than AOC. AOC's run unopposed for her last couple elections with huge funding. And she might win. So
I really hope she does. I would love to see that.
Yeah. That's why I figured I'd share it, because I shared it this morning on mine. Let's get it out to another audience.
Absolutely.
If we can take back these local ordinances and then start marching our way up to the state government, we can effectively cut off any federal programs. And we're seeing it. 6 states just sued the Biden administration for changing Title IX law without going through Congress. They just rewrote our Women's Rights Act to include trans people, because they're like I said, the people who write the laws for the politicians are these college graduates who've been indoctrinated into this system. They just figured they could rewrite the law and nobody would care. Well, here comes the lawsuits. But Biden doesn't really care. His administration, the Supreme Court has ruled every one of his student loan repayments unconstitutional and illegal, and yet he just writes a new one and forgives even more debt. Because hey, the money's already gone. What am I supposed to do? Take it back? That's
Speaking of
literally.
Speaking of take it back, I mentioned earlier we have our provincially here in Alberta. For anyone watching in Alberta, or if you have friends in Alberta, you can send them this clip. We have the United Conservative Party AGM, annual general meeting, happening this fall. And I already mentioned there's a lot of farmers that are going to be out busy in their fields. It's done intentionally, in my opinion, but you're going to have an AGM where you're going to be able to pass resolutions and policies, but we need people to show up. Now, one of the barriers to entry is the cost of the tickets. It's like it's like $300 a ticket or something to go to this thing. The early bird tickets are going to be on sale soon. I believe they're $100. So I'm going to put my email up on the screen right now. That's my email. If you're in Alberta, go buy a UCP membership. It's going to cost you $10. Clear your schedule to go to the AGM. If you buy your membership, buy your ticket to the AGM, okay, you're going to save money if you buy it early. Then email me here. We will get you reimbursed for that ticket. So it's not going to cost you to go to the AGM. You got to buy your membership. It's going to cost you $10. But that $100 or whatever the early bird price is going to be will be reimbursed. Email me with proof of receipt, proof of purchase, and we'll get that to you. We want everybody possible to go, because our politicians have not been doing their jobs appropriately. In my opinion, they have betrayed their people, and we need to hold them to the fire, and we can do that. So email me, get your ticket, send your receipt to me, proof of purchase. We'll get you reimbursed. We'll get you to the AGM, and we will change the future of this province. So thanks for the inspiration there with Tina Forte. That's amazing. And I really want to see her succeed. I really like her energy. And guys in Alberta, we can do the same thing here. Okay. So make sure you do that.
Get involved locally, even if it's finding a candidate that you support their values. A lot of us do live in cities. So I have the possibility to go and help a local candidate out and do whatever you can, because they need volunteers. Like I said, the machine has a whole system. If you want, yesterday, there's a whole flow chart, or was it this morning? A whole flow chart of how they swung the 2020 election with the media companies and all the stuff in their pocket to rile people up against Trump. And they're finding out rapidly it's not working this year. People aren't listening anymore. They've tuned into people like you and me and getting more of the real stuff that's going on and how to fix it. Start just at home, because everybody's kids are getting indoctrinated in this garbage here right now. And it's because they've taken over the school boards. They've taken over the schools. Even small little town up in northern Nevada with 8,000 people, they've been able to indoctrinate children up there because these teachers came right out of college, and the school district was hurting for teachers, and that's where they just brought them right back in. And they've been able to do this stuff almost everywhere. So we have to get into these positions to make it illegal for them to groom children and to pass these other laws and stuff like that. That's another big thing. I'm a big defender of. Don't touch the kids, man.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to encourage anybody out there, whether you be in the U.S. or Canada, if you're running, if you're a freedom-loving person, if you're on the right side of morality and ethics and history, reach out to people like Handy. Reach out to people like myself that do have. We have various size platforms from small to large, but find these platforms to get yourself out there. I'm sure we will be happy to give you a voice and to put you out there, because especially in municipal elections here, nobody, like, they're so small, nobody turns out, nobody is recognized. You know, they see the names on the ballot, they don't know who anyone is. So I'd encourage you to connect with people that have platforms like this on X, on Rumble, on YouTube, wherever, and get yourself out there. We would be happy to have you. Please do reach out. You're in a 2024 election right now in the US. We have our municipal elections in this province in 2025. And I want to give a platform to people that are fighting for Alberta. And as Handy, I'm sure you as well, for your area. So please do reach out. We want to put you out there.
And just to add to that too, if you need help with video production, with campaign art, I probably know 1,500 people online who would jump up and volunteer to make a video or to make you some awesome campaign posters. Even I might, because I've started making different logos and stuff that I'm trying to get things moving in more of a getting us to work together motion. So yes, reach out, because there's a whole community out there of just autistic people who want to shove it to the system and will help out in any way they can. So yeah.
Handy, my man, it's been a couple hours. I want to be respectful of your time.
I'm hungry.
yeah. I've been holding on to a pee here, so I got to go let that out. But where do people find you? Where's all your stuff?
Well, I'm on X most of the day at righthandy13. You can also find me on Gab and Truth Social. I check those a couple times a day. That's at Jeff the Handyman. That should be the name on everything, but X was previous to Elon was mean. Also
JEFF or JJeff or GJeff?
JEFF the Handyman. It's a longer tag, but it's awesome. I wish I could get that one back on X too. But also at Handy News on Rumble, just Handy News / is it Handy Breakdown, or is it actually? Let me just go real quick. I got to check it because I slips my mind, because I think I changed it to Handy News and it just won't show. We go in there. Everything's already open. I got to click to the right page. It's Handy Breakdown. Rumble.com/Handy Breakdown, because when I read the news, I do a deep breakdown of it so where everyone can understand it. So if I do breakdown sometimes some Canadian stories when they cross and tie in. But if you're really interested in American politics and news, I represent my Canadian brethren up there fighting just as hard. Come and listen in. We, like I said, twice a day on Rumble. We're live at noon Eastern. I'm live by myself for about 90 minutes with the news and coffee. It's 9 a.m. for me when I go live, and then 8 o'clock the same time. We're on Monday through Friday. You guys have been hanging out with the chat with. She's on with me for the night shift news. So, and the night shift news, we tend to get a little more fun. Tomorrow night will be our Friday fun stream, because we have to decompress from doing this 5 days a week. So tomorrow night, is going to be taking a bunch of videos that I haven't had a chance to see, most of them, and just dumping them on me. So it's a surprise to everyone. It usually ends up pretty fun. So, but you can't be serious and talk about the news all the time. It just wears you down.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, sir, I really I appreciate your time today, man. It was great talking to you, great connecting with you. And I'll be watching your Rumble channel and connected with you on X. And everybody, please make sure you go over to rumble.com/C/Handy Breakdown and go give Handy a follow. for his morning show and his evening show as well with Mom da Bomb. The Mom Bomb.
The Mom Bomb. It's
the Mom
Da-
Bomb. Da
Yep.
Mom Bomb.
Her nickname is literally Da, D-A. So that's why she's Da Mom Bomb. So the best
Da Mom Bomb
in
79.
my opinion. Yep.
Awesome.
So, according to me and my kids, she's the best mom in the world. I love her so much. Thank you. She makes all of this possible for me to do it because I'm reading stuff all day. So she started finding stuff all day for me to read as well. Just so we between the two of us, we find a gold mine, a treasure trove of information. So, but thank you for letting me get on here and shout out with you. It's been a blast.
It has been absolutely a blast, man. Just going to check here to make sure I'm not missing any Rumble rants. I have a habit of missing Rumble rants, and it doesn't look like I have. So that's good. Guys, if you do want to support the show, you can go check out buymeacoffee.com/tjken photo. Throw me a couple shekels. That'd be appreciated. If you think the show gives you value. If you appreciated what we said today, please do share the link out. Get people over here to watch what we have to say. New guests every week, Thursday nights, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Next week, I have Colin Krieger, leader of the Maverick Party, or the West Federal Party in Canada. And actually, the week after that, I'm really excited to have Jeff Widner on. He is the photographer responsible for the Tiananmen Tank Man photograph. Super excited about that, and so on and so forth.
Nice.
So just once a week here. We don't do it twice a day, but I really appreciate you guys that do put that effort out there. So thanks again, Handy, for coming on today, and we'll see you on the other side, my man.
Have
Cheers.
a great one, guys. Thank you.
Awesome, brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you. That was fun. Anytime.
And
if I see any breaking Canadian stuff, I might see if I can reach out and grab you from time to time too.
please do.